Well, Beijing hosted Prime Minister Mark Carney back in January, and now it's Canada's turn. China's Foreign Affairs Minister is in Ottawa, his first visit there in nearly a decade. The trip comes at a pivotal moment for both Beijing and Ottawa. Both are pushing back against U.S.-imposed tariffs. Increased bilateral trade comes with its own set of problems. None of them are quick or easy to solve. CBC's Marina von Stackelberg is on this story for us. She joins us once again live from our Ottawa bureau. So Marina, we've heard a little bit from officials from both sides. What stood out for you?
Yeah, and I think that video you played there of that very brief moment between Prime Minister Mark Carney and the Foreign Affairs Minister Wang is kind of indicative of the tenuous relationship that we see here between these two countries. Speaks about kind of how carefully the Prime Minister's office is trying to manage this relationship. You can see how quickly reporters were ushered, or rather our camera was ushered out of the room. You know, normally when a Foreign Affairs Minister comes to visit Canada, there will be some remarks that media can record. There will be sometimes some questions that can be asked, but very much not the case here with this visit from this high-ranking Chinese official. The Prime Minister's office actually didn't want initially to let any cameras in there to film this quick greeting, but we were able to get in there to film that very quick greeting between the two leaders. Of course, China does not have open or free access to the media. This is a very, very important meeting, though. This is the first minister from the Chinese Communist Party to visit Canada in about a decade. We were allowed to film some very brief comments between Foreign Affairs Minister Anita, who you saw there, and the Minister for Foreign Affairs in China. Have a listen to some of Anand's comments.
Our leaders set out a clear and ambitious vision for our recalibrated relationship. It includes elevated engagement and cooperation on trade and investment, energy, finance, public security and safety, and people-to-people ties. At the same time, each of our countries must address critical issues and priorities to ensure the safety and security of our peoples.
An important nod there to some of the issues between China and Canada. Anand also went on to say that they want to grow the relationship, quote, responsibly, grow trade while safeguarding economic and security interests and values. She really did focus her comments on the trading relationship that Canada is so interested in growing, pointing out that last year bilateral trade between China and Canada was $125 billion. Canada hoping to increase that by 50% by the 2030, in the next 4 years. Now, we also did get some brief comments from Chinese Minister Wang. He said that this trip is very much to finalize details and implement previous agreements, saying that the aim was to establish healthy, stable, and sustainable relationships with Canada. He said that China is set to be the world's largest market and the door for Canada will always be open, suggesting that maybe the trade could increase not by 50%, but maybe 100% if we maintain the relationship. So some very important language to parse there between the two leaders.
There are deep points of tension between these two parties. Talk to us about some of them.
Yeah, there are many. We can start with one that just happened pretty much overnight, which is that there was a confirmation that a Canadian warship had passed through the waters that China didn't like. Defense Minister's Office for the Canadian government acknowledging that the HMCS Charlottetown passed through the Taiwan Strait over the weekend. China, of course, claims this waterway and island of Taiwan as its territory. Taiwan doesn't see it that way. It sees itself as sovereign, a democratic country. The Defense Minister's Office says this is considered routine transit, and Canada, like other countries, considers the Taiwan Strait international waters. But China very much feels like this is their territory and came out saying, we respect the right of navigation under international law, but oppose acts that undermine security and sovereignty. Now, the Conservatives have been very critical of this visit from this minister and just how the federal government has handled the relationship with China. Pierre Poilievre talking earlier today with reporters about his concerns. Have a listen to what he had to say.
We should be willing to talk and trade with China, but we have to do so with our eyes open. This is a dictatorship that Mr. Carney himself acknowledged was the biggest threat to Canada only a year ago. And our interests in Canada are in being sovereign, self-reliant, and standing on our own 2 feet. ensuring that we have full control over our technology, our economy, and our minerals.
Canada, of course, wanting and needing to get more investment and access to that lucrative Chinese market, but there are very real national security concerns, human rights concerns with China that the government is trying to walk a delicate balance with here.
And there are also trade irritants for these two countries to sort out. What are you seeing there?
Yeah, so of course, the big issue for Canada is some of its agricultural products that it sells to the Chinese market, of quite lucrative, big, major market for Chinese agricultural products. Over the winter, we did see some of the tariffs on Canada's ag products reduced or taken away, which was a positive sign, but canola oil and pork still don't have access to that consumer market. Now, in return for this, Canada had also agreed to lower tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. There were reports that some of those vehicles might be on their way to Canada. And so this has been a concern, of course, because that would be good news for China. But Canada previously was very much in lockstep with the United States on this. There was an idea that the North American electric vehicle market had to protect itself from Chinese-made electric vehicles. So Canada has kind of stepped away from the U.S. in doing this. And so it's interesting yesterday because Prime Minister Mark Carney was speaking with business leaders in New York, pitching Canada as a place to invest and really downplayed the Chinese electric vehicle deal, essentially saying, well, a lot of these are Teslas, which are made in China, but it's actually an American country, pitching it as more U.S. brands and not Chinese brands that could come with potential economics or security risks. Natasha.
CBC's Marina von Stackelberg in Ottawa. Thank you, Marina.
You're welcome.